Okay, so we're going to imagine that this towel is our pelvic floor, and we can see that we've got some arms holding this towel, and they're what we call our connective tissue, or the ligaments, the things that join the muscles to the bone. Okay, and at the moment this pelvic floor is a nice, happy, healthy pelvic floor. You can see that it's a little bit domed, but it's quite flat and it doesn't look like it's working too hard. And the ligaments, or the connective tissue that's holding the towel, they're not working too hard either. Okay, so this is a very healthy, non-pregnant pelvic floor. Okay, and the reason why we want to look after our pelvic floors and think about the exercise and activities that we do in pregnancy is that as we start to add some extra weight on that pelvic floor, if we're overstraining the muscles and those sort of things, it's going to put a lot of strain on the connective tissue that's holding the pelvic floor. Okay, the muscle can often cope quite well, but if we're overstraining and pulling on the connective tissue all the time by doing bouncy or heavy impact sort of exercises and straining exercises, then we can tend to overstrain that connective tissue, and that's the bit that doesn't necessarily come back as easily after we've had our babies. Okay, so what I'm going to do now to this pelvic floor is I'm going to start adding some weight, and some of the weight that we get during pregnancy. So this will be an interesting process. Okay, so if we think about some of the areas that we get weight, we get an increase in the blood volume that we have. So just put one on. Okay, we can start to see the pelvic floors under a little bit more strain and working a little bit harder on that connective tissue. So we have increase in blood volume. We have some fluid around our babies, so the amniotic fluid. We have a placenta. Okay, starting to be a lot extra weight on this pelvic floor. We have an increase in our breast size, okay, as we're starting to prepare for lactation. We also have, we've got a baby. Add these ones for good measure. Okay, and you can see that there's a lot more strain happening. This is quite hard work on our connective tissue. So at this point, we haven't even added things like we tend to store a little bit extra fat and all of those things. So we can see that this pelvic floor is under a lot more pressure. There's connective tissue that's having to work harder. So if we're doing things that put more strain on that pelvic floor in an inappropriate way, then that's when we can start to do damage to that connective tissue.